Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time we're taking a look at Genesis chapters 22 through 25.
Oh, yeah. These are some pretty interesting stories.
Definitely. Lots of drama and big choices. And I don't know about you, but I always find myself wondering what I would do in some of these situations. Like right off the bat in chapter 22, we've got Abraham being asked to sacrifice his son Isaac.
Yeah.
What a story. I mean, where do you even begin to unpack something like that?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is that this story, known as the Akedah, it's not really about child sacrifice.
Right. It's more about,
It's about faith and obedience.
yeah, testing that faith to the absolute limit.
Exactly. It's this ultimate test of Abraham's willingness to trust God, even when it doesn't make any sense.
It's easy to say, oh, yeah, I trust God, but when you're actually put in a situation like that,
Right.
it's a whole different ballgame. It really makes you question
In case you question everything.
everything you thought you knew about God and faith.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of why this story has resonated with people for centuries. It forces us to confront those really difficult questions about the nature of faith and obedience.
And the thing is, we might not ever face a test as extreme as Abraham's, but we all go through those moments where life throws us a curveball.
Oh, for sure.
And we're forced to dig deep and figure out what we really believe.
And I think that's where the story of the ram comes in.
Oh, yeah, that moment of provision, like a glimmer of hope.
Exactly. It's this reminder that even in the darkest moments, even when we can't see a way forward, God is still there, working behind the scenes.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Genesis 23. This chapter deals with the death of Sarah and Abraham's grief.
Yeah,
It's a more somber tone.
it is. It's a reminder that life is full of both joy and sorrow.
What I find interesting about this chapter is the emphasis on Abraham's purchase of the cave of Machpelah as a burial place for Sarah.
It wasn't just a practical matter.
Right. It was about honoring her memory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was also about establishing a place of significance for his descendants. Remember, in ancient Israelite culture, land ownership was a big deal.
Oh, yeah. It was tied to identity and inheritance.
So this purchase wasn't just about securing a burial plot.
It was about,
It was about putting down roots, claiming a piece of the promised land.
which is interesting because it makes you think about how we approach legacy today in a world that's all about instant gratification.
Right.
This story reminds us of the importance of thinking long term.
Absolutely. It's about building something that will outlast us.
Okay, ready for a little bit of a lighter story?
Sure.
Genesis 24, the search for a wife for Isaac. I love this story. It's like ancient matchmaking.
It is. And it gives us a fascinating glimpse into the social customs of the time.
Like arranged marriages, which might seem strange to us today.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Mm.
But in that culture, marriage was about more than just romantic love.
It was about forging alliances,
Hmm.
ensuring the continuation of the family line.
And that's why Abraham was so intentional about finding a wife for Isaac, who shared their faith and values.
Right. He sends his most trusted servant on this mission.
And I love how the servant prays for guidance and asks for specific signs.
It's like he's saying, okay, God, if this is the right woman,
Hmm.
let me know.
And then we have that beautiful scene at the well.
Where he encounters Rebecca.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And it's not just chance, it's providence. It's this idea that God is involved in even the smallest details of our lives.
It makes you think about the qualities we prioritize in relationships today.
Right.
Are we looking for superficial things, or are we looking for deeper virtues like kindness, generosity, faithfulness?
It's a good question to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
maybe we should save that conversation for another time.
definitely. And speaking of conversations we need to save for another time,
Hmm.
how about we leave the story of Esau selling his birthright for a bowl of stew for part 2 of our deep dive?
Sounds good to me.
Buckle up, everyone, because things are about to get really interesting. All right, so we're back and ready to dive into the story of Esau and Jacob.
Oh, yeah. These two, they really keep things interesting.
Definitely. I mean, Esau selling his birthright for a bowl of stew.
What a move.
Makes you wonder what was going through his head.
I know, right? I mean, the birthright was a big deal back then.
Huge. It wasn't just about inheritance.
It was about spiritual leadership.
The future of the family line.
And he just trades it away for some food.
I guess he was really hungry.
Maybe. Or maybe it shows just how much he valued those physical needs over the long-term implications.
It's a good reminder for us to think about our own priorities.
What are we willing to sacrifice for short-term satisfaction?
Right. Are we making Esau-like deals in our own lives?
It's worth considering,
Yeah.
but the story doesn't end there, right?
Oh no, not even close. This is just the beginning of the drama,
We've got Jacob deceiving his father Isaac.
with a little help from his mom.
That's right. Rebecca definitely plays a role in this whole scheme.
It's like a family soap opera.
It kind of is. And it raises all these questions about ambition, deception, destiny.
Was Jacob fulfilling a preordained plan, or was he just being opportunistic?
The text leaves it open to interpretation.
It's fascinating. And then we have the whole thing with Laban and his daughters.
Oh yeah, Jacob ends up working for Laban for years.
To win Rachel's hand in marriage.
But first he gets tricked into marrying Leah.
Talk about a complicated family tree.
It gets messy. But through it all, we see Jacob's resilience.
It doesn't give up easily.
And amidst all the human drama, God's plan is still unfolding.
Right. It's like even when we mess things up, God can still work through it.
Exactly. And then we have that powerful moment when Jacob wrestles with God.
And gets a new name, Israel.
It's a turning point in his life, a symbol of his transformation.
It's such a powerful image, and ultimately the story ends with reconciliation between Jacob and Esau.
After years of animosity.
It's a beautiful reminder that forgiveness is always possible.
Even when relationships seem broken beyond repair.
These stories, they really pack a punch.
They do. They're full of twists and turns, and they challenge us to think about our own lives.
They make us ask ourselves tough questions.
About our faith, our families, our choices.
I love how they remind us that even though life can be messy, there's always hope for redemption.
Always.
So we've journeyed through these chapters of Genesis, these stories. What do they all mean for us today? How do they apply?
It's interesting, isn't it? These stories full of these, I don't know, larger-than-life figures. And we're trying to figure out, what's the takeaway for us?
Like, how does a talking donkey or sibling rivalry from thousands of years ago, how's that relevant to our lives?
Yeah. And I think one way to approach that is to look for the big picture, those themes that go beyond the specific details of the story, like faith, for example. That pops up again and again in these chapters.
Yeah, you see it with Abraham, right? It's like trusting God when it seems impossible.
Saying, I don't get it, God, but I'm going to trust you. And for us, I mean, we're always looking for certainty. We want to be in control.
Right. We like our plans. But these stories, they kind of challenge us to let go of that a little bit.
Yeah. To say, okay, I don't have all the answers, and I'm willing to trust that something bigger is at work.
It's easier said than done, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We see that with Jacob, too.
Oh, yeah. Jacob, he wanted the birthright. He wanted Rachel. And he was willing to, he cut some corners to get there.
He made some choices.
Some questionable choices.
But, it's interesting because even though he messed up, we still see that God's working in his life.
Like God's not giving up on him, even when he makes mistakes.
Right. And I think that's a message we all need to hear sometimes. We all mess up. We all make bad decisions.
But it doesn't disqualify us from God's grace.
Exactly. And that wrestling match Jacob has with God, that's a powerful image.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you make of that?
It's this physical struggle, but it also represents this inner struggle, that we all go through when we're trying to figure out our faith, make sense of our lives.
Wrestling with the big questions.
Exactly. And it's through that wrestling that we grow, we change. Jacob comes out of it with a new name, a new identity.
It's like he's been transformed by that experience. So if we had to sum up these chapters, what would you say is the big takeaway for us?
I think it's that the journey of faith, it's not always neat and tidy.
It's messy. It's full of ups and downs.
Yeah. But even in the mess, God is there.
Working things out.
Weaving together a bigger story.
It's a story that continues to unfold, even today.
And in our own lives.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Genesis. We hope you enjoyed it.
We hope it's given you some things to think about, maybe some new insights.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.